Saparivrajakacharya, Srimad, Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ram Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya, Ashtadhara Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sati Gaur Shri Radha Krishna Gokul Shama Kundara Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Radha Dham Ki Jai, Navdeep Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Munamaya Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktarinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning to devotees. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in the 6th canto, 3rd chapter, verse, hopefully 22, if I'm not mistaken. It's 22. Okay. Etavaneva lokasmin pumsam dharma parasmrita bhakti yogo bhagavati tannama grahanadibi. Etavaneva lokasmin pumsam dharma parasmrita Bhakti Yogo Bhagavati Tannamagrahana Devi Etavanevalokesmin Pumsham Dharma Parasmrita Bhakti Yogo Bhagavati Tannamagrahana Devi. I am spaced out. I'm not sure if I did chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. If not, I'll do it now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So with synonyms. Etavan, this much. Eva, indeed. Loke asmin, in this material world. Pumsham, of the living entities. Dharmaha, the religious principles. Paraha, transcendental. Smritaha, recognized. Bhakti yogaha, bhakti yoga or devotional service. Bhagavati, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not to the demigods. Tat, his. Nama, of the holy name. Grahana adibhi, beginning with chanting. Translation. Devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. As stated in the previous verse, Dharmam Bhagavatam, real religious principles are Bhagavata Dharma. The principles described in Srimad Bhagavatam itself or in Bhagavad Gita, the preliminary study of the Bhagavatam. What are these principles? The Bhagavatam says, Dharma Projita Kaitavo. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are no cheating religious systems. Everything in the Bhagavatam is directly connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam further says, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktirato Kshaje Ahaitukiya Pratihata Yayatma Suprasidati. Right? The supreme religion is that which teaches its followers how to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the reach of experimental knowledge. Such a religious system begins with Tannama Grahana, chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. After chanting the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy, one gradually sees the form of the Lord. The pastimes of the Lord and the transcendental qualities of the Lord. This way, one fully understands the situation of the personality of Godhead. One can come to this understanding of the Lord, how he descends into the material world, how he takes his birth, and what activities he performs. But one can know this only by executing devotional service. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Mama Vijanati. Simply by devotional service, one can understand everything about the Supreme Lord. If one fortunately understands the Supreme Lord in this way, the result is Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. It is hard to know. After giving up his material body, he no longer has to take birth in this material world. Instead, he returns home, back to Godhead. That is the ultimate perfection. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 8:15, Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayama shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining me, the great souls, who are yogis in devotion, never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection and of the perfect. So the verse again, Tavaneva lokasmin pumsam dharma parasmrita bhakti yogo bhagavati tan nama grahana dipi. Devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpa Tarubhescha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhana Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunnavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, good morning. So we are blessed again every morning to get in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, read the verse, read the purport, and discuss a little bit how we understand what His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, is trying to highlight for us, or elaborate more on the actual verse. So we are hearing the reply of Yamaraj, who, as we read today in Nectar of Devotion this morning, after Mangalarti, we're trying to read whenever we can Nectar of Devotion, and today there was a section describing certain servants of the Lord, and the servants, the first category of servants are called appointed servants. And those appointed servants are, generally speaking, are the demigods, who are executing certain affairs of this material world. And there was a dialogue described between the wives of Krishna, Jambavati and Kalindi. And Jambavati was asking various questions. Who is this person trembling on earth? And that was Lord Shiva. Who is this bowing down flat? And that was Lord Brahma and Lord Indra. And who is this and that? And she was asking, and eventually there was Yamaraj also. And Kalindi was replying to Jambavati, who is that demigod? And she said, oh, this is my brother, Yamaraj, who is in charge of, and she described briefly, Yamaraj duties. So now Yamaraj is one of the Mahajans, as we heard yesterday in the verse, the famous verse describing briefly, naming all 12 Mahajans, including Yamaraj. And now he's explaining the most important principle for living entity in a human society. And that principle is devotional service, but also it's not just the principle devotional service, it's also the main devotional service out of all devotional services is the chanting of holy name. It's a Yuga Dharma, of course, for us specifically in Kali Yuga, but also Ajamil pastime may have not happened in Kali Yuga, right? So what it means is that the principle of devotional service, or specifically the chanting of the holy name, was always is in every yuga. It's always valid. It's always most auspicious. It's always mangalam, most auspicious. But specifically in this age, is really we left out. We don't have much of anything else left. I mean, we do have the 5 angas of devotional service. We do have Srimad Bhagavatam. We do have Sadhu Sangha, as devotees just joined online and also in present. We do have holy places still, and in fact, places like Mayapur Dham. Everything is declining in Kali Yuga, all the religious suspiciousness, etc. But I heard Indradyumna Swami Maharaj quoting something, I don't know what he quotes, sometimes he has so many various sources of Shastra that he quotes. But he quoted that Mayapur Dham specifically in Kali Yuga will only be more and more powerful as Kali Yuga progresses. So everything will be on decline. And in Srimad Bhagavatam in 12th canto, when it's describing the symptoms of Kali Yuga approaching, it will, one of the symptoms also that the holy places will be non-different to any other mundane place. In other words, will be so contaminated by materialistic and atheistic mentality that there will be almost no benefit in being there. But somehow or other, Indradyumna Maharaj quoted somewhere that Mayapur Dham will become more and more powerful. Seems Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu somehow will even extend more than 10,000 years of his, specifically at least in his Dham, the mercy for those who desire some spiritual shelter. It's Audarya Dham. So, spiritual holy places, sadhu sangha, chanting of the holy name, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and worshipping the deities. So those 5 angas of devotional service described by Rupa Goswami were specifically important for us, right? Rupa Goswami came only 500 years ago, so specifically for us, for the residents of Kali Yuga, we have to execute those 5. So even though deity worship was the you can say dharma of previous age, Dwapara Yuga, still for Kali Yuga it is valid. And in fact, if we think about those 5, all those 5 are done in performed in the temples. At least that's how Srila Prabhupada has set the program in ISKCON for us. In other words, you do recite Srimad Bhagavatam in the temple every morning. You do chant congregationally for the pleasure of their lordships, right? Of course, we do chant and we focus that holy name is not different to Krishna. we're calling out sincerely for his presence in the holy name, trying to chant offenselessly. But still, in a temple, when we do it for the pleasure of the deities, it, in one sense, becomes a little easier because our senses are engaged with the proper object, the object who is receiving that. Then, of course, sadhu sangha, where devotees gather, they usually gather on home programs or the temples, right? So sadhu sangha also happens in the temples, and when the deities are installed, then the place becomes non-different to the holy place. I did quote to you before the verses from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 14, verses 30 to 33, ideal family life. And then there's described in those 3 verses about all the holy places across India and just a little bit beyond India also, like Bangladesh, Nepal, those areas, Malaysia also, I think. And then Srila Prabhupada translates the word archita, archa vigraha, or either archa vigraha or archa something. He translates it as, and in other places outside India, where specifically, he says, where Radha Krishna deities are installed, such as New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, he goes on like London, Paris, he names those cities. So those places are non-different to places of pilgrimage. And so all those blessings, like performing any pious activity there, will be increased 1,000-fold. So and he also says, and then he started with Radha Krishna deities, but then he says, and wherever the ISKCON center is established, in other words, even if it's Gaurnitai deities or whatever, even there's no deities, just wherever the ISKCON devotees are worshiping and chanting, because we have here in Gita Nagari Hall, actually, the Panchatattva painting, second one on the rear entrance. This is one of the original altars of ISKCON. This Panchatattva was worshipped for over a year in either New York or San Francisco or Montreal, in one of those 6 original temples. So in the devotion of devotees, of course, it's not like we cannot say that they had no prasadam for 1 year because there was no deities. No, there was, because they were worshipping this Panchatattva with all their hearts. And so Mahaprasad was also available. So, but of course, once deity is installed is something else. And when Prabhupada was installing deities, he was saying, like for example in France, when they installed Krishna Balaram in New Mayapur, it's interesting also that, if I'm not mistaken, there's only 2 Krishna Balarams, one in Vrindavan and one in New Mayapur in France. And the reason Srila Prabhupada said, I'm installing Krishna Balaram, he said, it's very difficult to preach to Europeans. They're very sophisticated, they're well-to-do, very educated, to just pierce through these layers of being, satisfied with life, having all the comforts and having deep-rooted traditions. You need bala, you need special strength. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, at least one of the reasons, he said that I'm installing here Krishna Balaram, so all you, the European preachers, can take shelter and strength from Balaram. It's quite interesting. If I knew that earlier, I would certainly go to New Mayapur to get darshan and pray. It's the one temple that, not just one, I had visited few, but it's the one I wanted. Now I want definitely to visit that castle, that beautiful place. Ajamil recently was there, by the way. Hopefully he could pray. He prayed for us, for all of us. So, okay, and so he said, whenever he installed the deities, he would be saying that this place is now Vaikuntha, or sometimes you'd say Vrindavan. So whenever the deities are worshipped, and if it's, the worship is done regularly, then the place really becomes no different to the holy Dham. Okay, anyway, I'm deviating from my thought. I already even forgot what I wanted to say. Oh yes, the chanting of the whole. Yes, so the 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. So those are, Prahlad Maharaj is not the Mahajan. He listed those for us to understand what devotional service is actually comprising of. And it starts with Shravanam Kirtanam, which is the basis and the most important practice out of all 9. Of course, each of them is self-sufficient and you can attain perfection just being deeply connected or performing one of those 9. And the examples are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. All of those different devotees are mentioned, like who did Vandanam, praising, who did, like Prahlad Maharaj, he did the meditation, Vishnu Smaranam, Shukadeva Goswami Maharaj Parikshit, one of them did Shravanam, another did Kirtanam. So they all attain perfection, just performing one, but then there's those who are like Maharaj Ambarish, who performed all 9 and attain perfection. So it's better to perform as many as possible, but also we should know that each of them is fully potent. And specifically it is said that Shravanam Kirtanam is the foundation, because without that you cannot remember the Lord. How can you remember the Lord if you don't hear and chant? You have to hear first, then you have to chant also, glorify, and then that actual image and the form, like it says here in the purport, that you first start with, where is it? After chanting the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy, which is very important, dancing in ecstasy, then it's kirtan. One gradually sees the form of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, and the transcendental qualities of the Lord. This way one fully understands the situation of the personality of Godhead. So to understand the Lord, we have to perform devotional service, right? Bhakti Mama Bijanati, this is the only way how we can understand the Lord. He will reveal himself to the degree that he wants to reveal himself to the little jiva who is performing devotional service. The most important is priti. Priti means devotion. If we don't do the priti, tadvidhi paripartana, sorry, not this one. Tesham satatam yuktanam bhajati priti purvakam. Tadavi buddhi yogam tamyena mamapayantite. So with this priti, if we do any activity for any of those 9, and even extending those to practical service when we think of the Lord, we can still chant as we do clean the floor, or as we wash the dishes, or as we milk the cows. We still can chant, and we still can perform the prime devotional service as we do the other services connected with the temple, farm, etc. To keep our consciousness going, for whom we're actually doing this service. And if we do that with priti, with devotion, that attracts the Lord. Nothing else. Just regular peeling potatoes will not attract the Lord. What attracts the Lord is that we do it for Him with love and devotion. If there's love and devotion, the Lord can take even an imperfect material circumstance situation. Like with Vidura, he was so much in ecstasy, he was blind with his tears flowing. And so the bananas were peeled, but then the banana itself was thrown away and the peels were given to the Lord with love and devotion. And he ate the peels. Sometimes devotees wonder, what does it mean? Patram pushpam palam tuyam. How, okay, I understand the leaf, says the tulsi leaf in the purport. I understand the water and the fruit. But how can you give a Lord flower that he would enjoy, as part of the offering? Like how are you going to eat the flower? So devotees are sometimes asking such questions. Every morning in Mangalarati, I see how Harchakra Prabhu offers the morning sweets to the deities. I have never seen even once that he would not put the flowers on the plate along with the nuts and dry fruits and kheer and burfis, water. So he has it complete. He has it offered with flowers for the pleasure of the Lord. It's and actually here right now we have James with this one of my favorite paintings of Lord Krishna eating the flower given by the Gopas. They ask him to close the eyes, and Krishna close the eyes, open his mouth, and Subalo, whoever the Gopa is, he stick the flower, and it actually was bitter flower. It was not maybe dandelion, some flower that was bitter. So Krishna ate, and it's bitter, and everybody laughed. So the devotion of devotees can even perfect in such a amazing interactions with the Lord, where the Lord is subordinate to the love of his devotees, does whatever they like him to do. For his pleasure, of course, but it's amazing. So we get the 5 Angas, where the holy name is mentioned. We have 9 process of devotional service. By Prahlad Maharaj, also the holy name, what Shravanam Kirtanam is mentioned there. So we can see it's very important. And Prabhupada, not Prabhupada, but the Yamaraj in this verse also starts that devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. In other words, without this practice, we are not like we are not complete. We don't have the essence. So the essence is to serve the Lord, yes, but even more so to chant the holy name all the time. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Tunadapi Sunichana, Tarorapi Seshana, Manina, Manana Kirtaniya Sadahari. That one has to chant the holy name constantly. Because we have to, it's in our own benefit to connect with the pure. Kavitram, or Lord is Achyuta, he is not touched by the modes of material nature. It's always pure. And we want to connect with the pure because we want to ultimately interact with the Lord, having a relationship. And for that, we need to purify ourselves, purify our senses, purify our existence. And that's why we need to chant as much as possible. Like some devotees in America, they do have this initiative, which starts very soon, in 1 week. They glorifying Srila Haridas Thakur. Is it disappearance? I think it's disappearance day that's coming up. And they glorifying him by chanting 192 rounds, but in 3 days. Every day 64 rounds. And what they have noticed, the devotees who participate in this 3-day marathon chanting 64 rounds every day, that many of them who have not chanted 16 rounds before, after that marathon, it is so easy for them to start and stick with minimum 16 rounds a day. So they sharing that experience, and they're saying, let's glorify Haridas Thakur by chanting his quota of rounds, but at least we cannot imitate him in 1 day, so at least we chant it in 3 days. And in this way, glorify him, but also get a habit, understanding that actually 16 rounds is really minimum. Srila Prabhupada didn't ask us to chant 16 rounds. He asked us to chant minimum 16 rounds. And of course, do practical devotional service. And when we do practical devotional service, it's kind of like continuation of our chanting the rounds. Like, for example, I'll quote you a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's 7th chapter, 14th. Oh, that's the same chapter that I quoted, but just a verse before, 29. It's also said that Yatra Yatra Harir Archa Sadesha Shriyasam Padam. That They will be all pious on those land where the temples of Supreme Personality of Godhead and Krishna, where there will be proper worship to him. But there is in a purport, it says somewhere, I'm not sure if I can find it. But the idea was that if you are worshipping deities, um, it's like a continuation of your chanting. It was on an equal level. It's like you continue the chant. So in other words, I'm just trying to make a parallel here that you chant 16 rounds minimum. You have to chant them on the beats. But when you worship the deities, it's like continuation of your chanting. So say you worship the deities another hour. So that means you chanted whatever amount of rounds you chant in an hour, say 8 rounds. So you got already 18. Oh, sorry, not 18, 24. Like this. I'm just trying to make it's not like that you have to count it like that, but what I'm trying to say is that being engaged in devotional service, especially in those mentioned in the 5 angas, it's like you continue chanting, right? Because, for example, right now, Srimad Bhagavatam, we're also chanting the glories of the holy name. The holy name has all the pastimes, all the form. And when we describe the pastimes of the Lord by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like we're chanting the holy name. I mean, the process is non-different in terms of that it purifies us, it purifies our heart, right? Ashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloka Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So it purifies our heart from all the unwanted things in our heart, but also glorifies the Lord. It makes us closer to the Lord. We attract it, our attention is in focus only on the Lord. And as it says here in the purport today, Bhagavatam starts with one of the first verses, Dharma Projita Kaitavutra, that it eliminates all the cheating religious systems. What is that cheating religion mentioned in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam? Bhagavatam starts with Bhagavad Gita ends. Bhagavad Gita ends, Sarva Dharman Parichaja Mamekam Shranamurja. Om Manmana Bhava Bhakta Mamejin Mam Namaskuru. So just on me, worship me, surrender to me, think of me, pay obeisances to me, like that. In other words, nobody else. The demigods are out of business here. Srimad Bhagavatam is only about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in fact, demigods are glorified there also by chanting the glories of the Lord, like Lord Shiva. It's the most beautiful prayer in the 4th canto, where he glorifies the Lord. Brahma, in the 10th canto, glorifies the Lord. Indra, apologetically, glorifies the Lord. The demigods also participate. Right now, Yamaraj glorifying the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj will glorify the Lord. Like this, all the pure devotees will glorify the Lord. The servants, appointed servants of the Lord will glorify the Lord. Everybody's glorifying the Lord, and we too should glorify the Lord. This Kaitava Dharma means nobody else. Bhaja Govinda. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda Mudamate, said Shankaracharya. I'm sure teaching all this impersonalism based on Vedas for decades, right at the end he says, actually this will not help you. These philosophical disputes will not help you in the moment of death. So he said, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda Mudamate. Don't be stupid, just worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. This is the way. So and Srila Prabhupada sometimes would quote, not specifically that I just said, but quote that Shankaracharya at the end would acknowledge that actually the best is to worship Govinda, worship the Lord. So Srimad Bhagavatam is taking all those cheating religious. Why cheating? Cheating means a business trade-like mentality. I want something for me, so I'll worship this demigod, I'll get that. I'll worship this demigod, I'll get that. So none of that. We worship ahaitukya pratihata yatma supersidity. We worship the Lord uninterruptedly, without any motive, just to give Him pleasure. And we should continue doing this no matter what, day after day. And the pinnacle of that philosophy, Lord Chaitanya describes in Shikshashtakam prayers. At the end, he says that whether you reject me or embrace me, doesn't matter how you treat me, you will always be my worshipable Lord. In other words, you pay attention to me, you don't pay attention to me, you manifest in front of me, you don't manifest. I don't care. You are my object of worship, and I will do it regardless of circumstances. This is the highest, topmost perfection of devotional service. In fact, the devotees who are very much elevated, they're so humble and they're so infused or living by just giving pleasure to the Lord, that even if the symptoms of ecstasy will overcome their bodies, the hair will stand on end and the tears will come out and start trembling. If they perform in devotional service right at that moment, they will succeed, trying to subside those symptoms so that they can continue the devotional service. And best example I can think of is Srila Prabhupada, whenever he chanted Jai Radha Madhava and got in complete trance, quite often actually, in such a deep trance by chanting this bhajan, which is all about Vrindavan and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And sometimes the trance would really overcome him so much that he would lose his ability to speak, he would choke up, and he was still motionless, sit motionless and speechless, and there was such a quiet atmosphere, not even a pin drop. You would hear a pin drop. That's how devotees described it, and everybody was stunned looking at Srila Prabhupada for minutes until somebody would start chanting Hare Krishna and Prabhupada would come out of the trance, apologize, and say chant Hare Krishna and would walk away and would not even comment what happened. It happened a few times in Mayapur, in Atlanta, a few more places. So those symptoms would sometimes overcome those Mahabhagavatas, but they're not showing off. They don't want to broadcast them. They don't want to, and they wanted to continue glorifying the Lord, but sometimes it would not be even possible. Like Srila Prabhupada, sometimes it would be so strong that he would not. And then he would apologize. He would say, "I don't do it too often." So, like apologetically would try to explain himself. It is like I'm apologizing for having ecstatic trance right in front of you. And the wives of the Brahmanas had the same thing. When they heard Krishna and Balaram, and they just fainted right at that spot moment. They just heard the names. And then they, when the boys said, they're hungry, we have to feed them. Because they heard all in this ecstatic trance, they know now they have to do the service. They came out of the trance, came out of it back to consciousness in order to perform. But it says that they felt unconscious again just because it overwhelmed them that they have to now have this opportunity to serve the Lord with those, with the feast. So they felt twice unconscious. Once when they heard the name, second when they heard that they are hungry and they have to feed. So, but then with some conscious effort, they finally arose to actually perform that service because they didn't want to Krishna wait any minute, right? So yeah, so this is something to be inspired by devotional service. It's the best thing that a human being can have, and we have to always focus, like that psychologist said, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So we have to know what's the main thing. Whatever we're doing in life, we have to remember that the main thing is this verse, devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Hare Krishna. If there's any comments or questions, we still have 10 minutes. Check the chat.
I do have one.
Okay.
I mean,
There you go. They have
well, thank you for speaking so much about devotional service and how you're talking about praying to Balaram for spiritual strength. So I was just, for some reason, that made me contemplate how, I think Gurudev's talked about it before, how kind of as you, after your first couple of years in bhakti, when, Krishna is very mercifully purifying us of our material motivations, but maybe we don't have like super sufficient attachment to Krishna, like, oh, I'm just doing this for Krishna's pleasure. I mean, that's also a lifetime endeavor, but um, yeah, it kind of feels like a weird in limbo state. It's like, what? I mean, yeah, what am I doing this for? Like, it's an interesting place to be. So I was wondering if one of my member can comment on that.
Okay, so Dinapalika has a question, a common question. When you just begin your devotional service in this lifetime, we don't know what you've done before, but you may not have the attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the degree that you do everything for His pleasure. So sometimes you find yourself or catch yourself on the thought that actually, what am I doing and for whose pleasure am I doing it for? Um, right? Anything else that I...
Yeah, but also, I mean, in the beginning of bhakti, like, we could do something of like full, I'm going for it, but because, I want the devotees to like me, I want respect, I want recognition, like
Okay.
Krishna then helps to purify that. So if that's gone, but you haven't also developed sufficient attraction, it's like a weird in between.
Mm. Yeah, so basically a state in between when you also have maybe in the beginning desires that you also want recognition, or that you're doing wonderful devotional service, you want attention or other things. So when you find yourself in this state in between, that this Krishna purifies that, in the meantime you don't have that attraction, it's kind of a strange situation how to continue even the service. What would be the mood and what to do? Okay. So of course, by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we are getting the taste in the beginning, which is free of charge. Like it's really so overwhelming sometimes, especially in some cases, when devotees are really not offending devotees and like really jumping into this ocean of mercy very quickly. They get so overwhelmed with those transcendental emotions. Everything seems like a rose garden to them. Wherever they see like Chai, Hare Krishna, and they will say, Dinapalika, he was so exalted. This class was, they just glorifying and floating in the sky, and you're sitting there thinking, oh, yeah, right. Hare Krishna, this beginning stage are very, very dangerous, because God forbid if I say something wrong or, like disturb their ecstasy, I'll be maybe an enemy number one overnight, something like that. Um, but but it's wonderful to see, of course, because it's an original motivation for them. All that taste that they get, this fraction of love of Godhead from by Lord Chaitanya's grace. That's what's happening. So that's an initial impetus, and of course, Lord Chaitanya will also start charging later. That charging is, for regulative principle, 16 rounds, attentive rounds, which we start to neglect as time goes by, and make offenses in our chanting. And with that, we are surprised later as the years go by, like, why am I not feeling attraction to the Lord? But what are you doing your homework properly day after day? That's what devotees are finding themselves in that situation, and have to analyze and see, how am I actually really practicing consciously? Now I have the knowledge, I know the ultimate goal, the love of Godhead. I know it's not cheap. I know it's not cheap. It's described in Shastra. It's not like so. But how do I start performing this so that am I actually making those steps by steps, that process that Srila Prabhupada gave us? Do I have the endurance? Do I have the determination? Krishna says, Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction, right? What is it? Nishchaya Darya, that you have to be very determined, enthusiastic, and so forth. tolerant, determined, enthusiastic, and tolerant, right? What's the third one? Patient, tolerant. So these three, if you just do this, and how do you test patience? Only time. Time is a test. So it's not like I do it 1 day or 2 days. It has to be in the time tested. And because like once I read Bhagavad Gita, I remember, it says, devotee who is in fame and infamy, in good health and bad health, in riches, in poverty, and this and that, continues the devotion. So it's very pure, priyosime, it's very dear to me. And Krishna goes on like that. There's like 5 verses or so that he describes the qualities of the duality that the devotee doesn't get into, remains fixed in transcendental devotional service. And Krishna says, such devotee is very dear to me. And then at some point I thought, oh, well, if I want to become a devotee, I can guarantee Maya will test me on all of those because I'll have to prove I'm serving in poverty, I'm serving in riches, I'm serving in infamy, I'm serving when I'm famous, like that. So a devotee will be tested by those and he'll remain fixed. And in this way he proves as a devotee to Maya, who's the servant of Lord. She has to test you first before letting you near the Lord. That's her service, ungrateful service. So like that. Sorry, I just have one comment I want to read. There's a question by James, but we may return to this to clarify more. Some days it's difficult to attentively listen to lectures of aspiring spiritual master due to overstimulation and fragmented attention in service. Chanting and reading are very sufficient. Now, sorry. Okay. Now say if I go a few days without hearing spiritual master lecture and just focus on reading Bhagavatam and chanting, is that bad for my bhakti or doesn't matter much? Okay, thank you for the question. It is very nice to hear your spiritual master aspiring or existing, because it's enthusiastic, it's your relationship that you're developing with him. You may hear some valuable instructions or even reply to a question by replying somebody else's question. So this is just an inspiring process. But of course, reading of Bhagavatam and chanting is also, well, first of all, what are we reading? We're reading the words of our Param Guru, not just Param Guru, but also our founder Acharya, the pure Shuddha Bhakta, the pure devotee of the Lord, which is the most purifying that you can ever have, that's available. Prabhupada says, my devotional ecstasies that you are in touch with. I will eternally live in my books, he said. The books will be 10,000 years of law books for this human society, he said. It's the book that we just said, it's Kaitava Dharma project, that there's nothing, there's no cheating religion. You're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, you are associating with so many pure devotees there, and the Lord at the same time. The Lord never leaves the association of pure devotees. And we're reading a pure devotee citing how other pure devotees associating with Krishna. So how better can that get? There's nothing better than that, apart from Chaitanya Charitamrita. But I mean, that's still the Bhagavatam. So, and the chanting is same also. The holy name is full and complete, Purnam, sufficient, complete. Is all the pastimes, the form, everything is there. We just read the purport also. So yes, it's not. I wouldn't say it doesn't matter much. I would just say this is a perfect, complete devotional service. But we also need to hear the devotees with whom we have a relationship with, who help us to understand that what you're reading and that what you're chanting. And spiritual master being the one who brings the enthusiasm and bhakti in us. Of course, we need that as regular as possible. But as you said, the quality of that hearing must be also there. If you're just hearing while eating, that's not the best process, because actually you're not just eating, you're honoring prasadam. That's why when we honor in prasadam, we actually, in ISKCON temples, I think we should start implementing this. We hear Srila Prabhupada bhajans. We don't hear Srila Prabhupada lectures at that time. Most of the time we hear Prabhupada bhajan. Because the bhajans, the chanting of the holy name, or the bhajans, Narottam Das Thakur and others, they just set the nice vibration for us to honor prasadam in it. But to hear the lecture while eating or while honoring prasadam is not the best, because you will, the quality of your honoring prasadam will diminish, because you will stop focusing, your attention will go elsewhere. But also you will not get, during the lecture, during eating, you will not hear much also. You'll hear something, as well as with other devotional service. But if it keeps you inspired, just judge it by this, rather. Whatever is inspiring for you, whatever brings more inspiration for you to chant better, for you to perform devotional service, do that. I know devotees hear Prabhupada classes first thing in the morning in the bathroom. So, you know, the whole Russia at some point in the 90s did that, and I think many still continue. It's okay. If you want to wake up with transcendental sound vibration of Prabhupada personally preaching you right there in the morning, great. You know, if it works, it works actually. So do that. So no hard and fast rules how you chant the holy name. So no hard and fast rule where you hear classes, even if it's a bathroom. But you know, still ideally it's a place where you can actually focus. What I found for me personally most effective is I'm not just hearing Prabhupada lecture, but I'm reading it at the same time. It's, you know, database. You can read and hear Srila Prabhupada lectures at the same time. Of course, for that you need to sit down and have it quiet time. It's almost like part of the reading. Start with art. Okay. So I'd like to stop here. We can continue offline during lunchtime today, James. Thank you. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All first. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Atya. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe. Shri Radha Damodar Linda Vishakanitai Gaura Sundara Uh, she's she's a lot of good gift. And now she had Oh, oh, Lord, speak about spiritual mastery, only to maintain devotional service, not out of the Holy Spirit, but all reverence. By His grace, one can cross oceans and suffering, and attain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is that my conscience is purified. By the words emanating from His Lord's mouth, attachment is what is seen, attraction to the soul of the eyes. We often find out, to fill my heart with transcendent knowledge. Is my Lord great popular? From him ecstatic frame of enemies, by him ignorance very scriptures is there. Auspicious, oceans, branded Lord Master. O Master, feel the merciful unto us, and use the the famous that we few wings. Give divine grace is about the purpose of the interesting. I think I didn't fully answer your question. But I haven't seen the village number. Right, but I mean, it's person, like, well, it's reading the war, and you know, we can sometimes you really the trouble on then it's like all the oceans that well awesome. Oh Krishna and this